In this week's streaming audio, we're talking to two platform engineers, Doron and Liran Yogev, about how their platform and their understanding of what they're supposed to be building has evolved. Because a few years back, the heart of their platform was Apache Spark, and they very reasonably thought that their job was to make life easy for Spark developers. But as they started to succeed with that, they realized there's actually a bigger picture going on when you're developing a platform team. Because the people writing data into the system may be getting their job done, but they aren't really successful until the people reading it back out, for whatever purpose, are successful. The readers need to be enabled by the writers. They need to be able to answer questions like, what data is available? What does it look like? Where did it come from when I need to debug it? What's the quality of this data? Readers need tools to be able to answer those kinds of questions, those kinds of lineage, schema, governance questions, without having to have a conversation with the writers every time. And that takes a good platform team seeing the bigger picture. And that's what this week's episode is really about, leveling up from being a first-order platform team that's enabling individual departments to get their work done, to being that kind of second-order platform team that keeps the whole company moving. It needs some technical changes, it needs some supporting tools, it needs some mindset changes around the organization. And Doron and Liran are going to talk us through their journey on it. In some style, I have to say, these two have got a really good rapport. It was a great fun conversation. So, streaming audio is brought to you by Confluent Developer. More about that at the end. But for now, I'm your host, Chris Jenkins. This is streaming audio. Let's get into it. I'm joined today by two partners in crime, Doron and Liran of, is it Yotpo? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, 50% of us are from Yotpo, yes. Yeah.
And the other 50 are from a company called ZipRecruiter.
ZipRecruiter. Okay, yeah. We're going to have to go through that. But we're mostly talking about the data infrastructure stuff you've been doing at Yotpo, right?
Yeah.
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk about both, I suppose.
This is going to be great. You've already hijacked the direction we were going in. We're going to have fun.
Yes,
I can tell.
This is going to be an improvised session.
Okay. So in that case, let's start off in 2 sentences. Let's start with you, Doron. Tell me what Yotpo do.
Okay, Yotpo is a B2B SaaS company, and we build an e-commerce marketing platform that serves e-com businesses with different products that we offer as part of the platform with very strong synergies among them. These products can be review solution, communication channels such as SMS messages or emails, customer data platform to do segmentation over, referral programs, loyalty, and so on and so on. And we're based at Tel Aviv, but we're a global company.
Okay. So if I understand that from like a man on the street perspective, you're like doing, if I've got an e-commerce shop, you're the people who do a mixture of customer analytics and remarketing and support messaging and all those things I need to make the business actually marketable when I'm selling stuff.
Yeah, but you're actually getting like, but it's like it's a SaaS solution that's like on-site widgets and all kind of like a B2B interface that includes analytics as well on all your data. But yeah, that's basically the point.
That's one of those things, I think, from my point of view as a programmer, it's almost more interesting, the infrastructure. Like there's a huge amount of data flying around. From a programmer's perspective, it's a huge infrastructure business.
Yes,
as much as
sure.
It is a marketing platform, right?
Yeah, and we have all the like the B2C activity with shoppers and visitors. That's a huge amount of data. And then again, we have all the orders, products. Yeah, and we have November holidays coming in. So yeah.
Oh yeah, you've got Black Friday and Christmas coming up and all that fun.
Cyber Monday.
We all have that, right?
Right, good job. We're recording this podcast before that tsunami arrives.
Thank you.
They're going to be super successful. It's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing bad is going to happen, right?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna understand how your infrastructure can scale to that kind of load.
Okay, cool.
But and then we move on to you, Liran. You were saying your oh God, I've already forgotten the name. I'm terrible.
So we used to work together up until 3 or 4 months ago, and then I left. I went to work for ZipRecruiter, which I've been working for. We're working for the past couple of months, but we're still working together. We have a podcast that we host together. It's in Hebrew. You can check it out if you like. It's called the Data Swamp. But other than that, we're still buddies, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
so.
yeah. So.
And you did a talk recently at Current about the infrastructure for Yotpo, and like moving into kind of data modeling infrastructure choices you made along the way, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's like the modeling platform that we've dreamed of while we're doing things otherwise.
Well, maybe we should start there. Like, give me an idea of what state it was in before you started on this re-infrastructure project.
Okay. So basically, we started. It was 2016, I think, that we've built this self-service modeling infrastructure based on Spark.
And you can call it just ETL.
Yeah, it's an ETL framework, and we based it on Spark. And all people had to do was write their SQLs into YAML files and configuration, spin up their Airflow DAG or whatever it is. They can run stringing jobs as well. And we were very, very focused on enabling generalist developers and building their own data pipelines to feed our data lake and to offload all kinds of processes that were very heavy on the service side onto the data lake. And analytics, of course, because it also addressed BI developers, analysts, and whoever can write SQL, basically. So back then and up until like a few years later, we were really focused on just build, guys, just build, and give us more.
And I think we were so proud of this, we actually open sourced this project because we thought like everyone can enjoy it. And we did like talks about it. We were really proud of this project and just super successful, by the way. Like we had hundreds of data pipelines created this way. So kind of like it's called Metorico. Metorico?
Metorico.
Metorico.
Yeah.
It sounds like somewhere I could go on holiday.
It's or if you like a place called Metric in Japanese, fine, you can go on holiday there. Yes,
it's actually Metric in Japanese. It's true.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Metorico.
It's catchy.
I wasn't expecting to learn a little bit of Japanese in this podcast.
Yes,
you never know.
See. We don't know Japanese. It's important to us to know.
Just this one. So yeah, it was very, very successful. But I think that like with time, actually, it's like I think it's a global data thing that we kind of understood that there's more to just enabling people to
producers.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like we are super, super focused on producer side, which I think was kind of like juvenile. Like we just wanted to be like popular and get developers happy building those pipelines, but we didn't really think of the whole like downstream effects of whatever pipelines we were creating. And yeah, you can like simply call it a data swamp. Of course, it wasn't that extreme, but we kind of lost control over like what was being created and produced, and like all the different producers that were writing these Spark jobs, they weren't really aware of what exists elsewhere. Like I could be building a certain pipeline, and Liran would build the exact same pipeline, only with slightly different names or slightly different metrics, and we wouldn't be aware of each other. So it's really a matter of governance. But also a matter of like understanding the holistic picture, like what happens to the data, where it comes from, where it goes, who's using it, and like continuancy in that term.
Yeah, there was no like centralized place to create those, to see what there is. So not really.
We actually decentralized it all the time.
Yeah, we really wanted, because again, we were so focused on our engineers. We wanted them to give them freedom, like microservices. They can create whatever they want in their environments. They don't really care about each other. So there you don't have usability. You don't have like a centralized place to see everything. You don't understand how to consume data. So again, we were missing a lot when we wrote this.
You've gone from like that first order problem of we can't even write the data to, oh my God, we've written all this data and we don't actually know what we've got, right?
Yeah, exactly that.
The second order problem of actually managing it at scale.
Yeah. And I think like another thing, like maybe two other things. One, we also started to think about developer experience, like how fast it is to like ship data to I don't know, to production and have it ready and available all the way up to like analytics or the application that's using it. And we wanted to improve that. And the last thing I think is the coupling that we created between our business logic, like the organizational business logic, and Spark, which is great. But like I think that for a really long time we were positive like Spark is the way to go, and like we shouldn't look right and left. But as time went by, we started seeing that it's not the perfect solution for everything, and then we realized that everything we've written down in Metorico is Spark. It's Spark SQL, but it's totally coupled to the underlying technology.
I think it's really apparent in the streaming world, where Spark structured streaming, which is like their the Spark way of doing streaming, is kind of basic in a lot of ways, and it's not as advanced as other streaming engines. And that's where we kind of like thought, well, we want something else here, but so we're going to have to write it outside of our common way of writing data pipelines, which we really hated, because wait, so now we're going to have two methods of writing it out. So that's kind of like the challenge, where it's kind of like it triggered us, like, okay, there's something wrong here.
Right, yeah. Just quickly, for those that don't know it well, how would you categorize Spark? What does it do? What's its strength and weakness?
So Spark is a distributed compute engine.
Right.
And it is, I suppose, helpful to perform batch operations on top of data, on top of small to big data, right? It does that pretty well. It has a lot of optimization along the way to help create very complicated data pipelines on top of very large data sets. And it's infinitely scalable. So yeah,
batch and micro batch.
Batch and micro batch, yes.
Batch and micro batch, yeah. We were recently thinking about trying to coin the term nano batch for like 5 records at a time. And really,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's actually a good solution for a lot of problems, but yeah.
So
yeah, I think that what we realized that was sometimes, I think there are a few things that are problematic with Spark. Some are solvable, and other just in technologies, some aren't. But first of all, it's not that easy to understand for people who do not know and understand Spark, which is part of the thing that we did. Like we made Spark available, but once things break, they go to the data team and say, "Oh, it broke. Can you help me read the logs? I don't understand what happened." And you need to be able to dig into the process to understand like where things went wrong, what you should change, and all those beautiful configurations that you put into your job and configure it. You have to, like, we really try to generalize this. I think we did a really good job in generalizing. But still, you have those edge cases where you need more, and it's not for the common developer.
Yeah, for example, when I moved to ZipRecruiter, it's very different here. Here we have like people called data engineers, and it's different than what we used to have at Yotpo. These people that are really experts in Spark and experts in data technologies. So, and there's a lot of knowledge to have. So when we try to make it simple, we actually reduced a lot of the knowledge you have to know, but also a lot of the really cool features that you can do if you know Spark and if you understand the technology better. So this was kind of like different here when
so you gain velocity across like a large crowd of developers that can like move forward now, but you meet it again like in terms of cost and performance,
optimizations,
and scaling this operation in a like a responsible manner. And the second thing I think is that sometimes we would feel that like Spark requires a lot of resources for something that would not require that many resources under a different technology. Sometimes it just feels really like bulky and heavy.
Give me an example.
It's this huge hammer that you can put on a lot. I think a lot of organizations have this. You can solve a lot of problems with Spark, right? It can do everything. You can call APIs, and you can use it when you do streaming, and you can do like really, really weird things. And by the way, on top of really small data sets in some cases. But it's also like a very generic way to solve problems. But as Doron said, like it is extremely heavy. There's always has to be a cluster, and the cluster has like this minimum size that it needs. It has a long startup time, and it's like if you look at technologies that try to solve things faster, so you can take KSQL for example, it's very different from that. It's a more heavy lifting type of tool.
Is this like, I remember working for a company years back where they would end up doing a Hadoop MapReduce job that took an hour to run to add up 1,000 rows to get a total.
Yeah. So Spark is the next generation or previous. I don't know how to call it, but it's better than MapReduce. But still, it's another type of tool that is
it's like sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like it's. I think
by the way, they are improving that way on that area. Like I don't think they'll remain the same over the years. But right now, so you're starting to say, sorry.
I don't remember what I wanted to say. It's okay. No, but no, I agree with Liran with what he said. But I think, yeah, we saw even like in terms of streaming, then we had a lot of problems with Spark as well because of the micro batching and because it doesn't like and scaling wasn't like perfect. And we were basically running our own self-managed Spark clusters, still do in most cases, and we already We always had problem with scaling well and reacting to changes in the amounts of data coming in and in the oncoming batches, which we didn't want to solve with like just adding more machines to ignore that problem. And like streaming started not to feel really like streaming. I remember years ago when we tried to address the problem of updating or upserting data files in the data lake. We wanted to update Parquet files with CDC data, and we used Spark with Hudi, and it just didn't feel right. Things have changed. That's 3 years ago, but the batches were so long, and we were running like streaming jobs, and it took like 40 minutes to process a batch.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where we felt that maybe like different workloads require different solutions, which is different than what we used to think up until then.
Right. Yes, you were trying to one size fits all solve
Yeah.
these problems. So what did you do? What was your first step to move away from that?
So we didn't start by moving away from this specific problem about Spark. Spark is still major in both companies, by the way, and
Right.
it will continue to be because it's a really great tool to solve a lot of different issues. But we can use other tools that are more hyper specialized for specific use cases. By the way, Yotpo, one of the tools that we actually did use for streaming, and one of the problems that Doron just mentioned about the updating in the data lake and updating really fast arriving data from CDC streams, we used Absolver for that because they did a really good job with the minimum amount of resources needed for that. So that was a really good solution back then. But again, we didn't came like directly because of we wanted to switch to another technology other than Spark. We started like looking at the entire problem that we talked about governance and about losing all that metadata and about understanding and reusing more and more data sets and not recreating them by different teams.
It's just a small remark. It's not that we wanted to replace Spark altogether or do it now. We wanted to have the ability to have this agility that
freedom.
we can, the freedom. Thank you. That we can move away from Spark and not lose all the beautiful stuff that we've created. Like we want all the infrastructure to be in place and not to be totally coupled to Spark.
So the mission was actually decoupling and not switching to a different technology.
Right. Yeah.
And once we did a decoupling, now we have that freedom. So
I think it's funny because like one of the things that we used to say to ourselves all the time, like in the infrastructure group, like we're all about decoupling. Everything in the data platform is decoupled, and every solution is very dedicated around a specific need and a requirement. And we didn't even notice that we had this crazy coupling in the modeling area. And I think this is like the biggest aha moment we had.
Yeah.
So you mean by coupling in the modeling area, do you mean that your models were tightly coupled to Spark's way of doing things?
Yes.
Yeah.
And reading on Spark SQL and everything like
it's not just about Spark. It was coupled to the execution. So it could have been a different technology. We could have used Snowflake, for example, to run our batch or streaming jobs. But at that time, it was Spark. But again, part of the configuration of a model was how are you going to execute it? What's going to be the output format? Like these things that are kind of like should be probably decoupled than your logic, your business logic.
Yeah.
So that was where we started from.
You've ended up with a mixture of data and how to deal with it, right? Rather than just pure data. And I always think that data is the one thing that decouples. Right? If you can make the connection between two systems, just data, that's as decoupled as you can possibly get.
I think that we also thought about like, okay, eventually we're just creating Parquet files. So anyone can use these Parquet files. It's not coupled to a certain engine. But going like a step back, the actual modeling itself, the actual like process ingesting and digesting the data, that part should be decoupled. And that's the part that we wanted to keep across different implementations.
And I want to also add, because I don't think we talked about it before, but we the focus on consumers is something that was really important. It's not just about the decoupling; it's about also being able to describe things so the consumer can consume the data better, right? You talked about data and it being the ultimate decoupling, but what is data? So data is by the basic properties, it's just like a bunch of files that have like maybe a schema defined somewhere, and someone can consume it with some different technologies, right? So that was not enough for us. Like So, for example, one of the things you wanted to know, like, okay, so who is the owner of this data, right? Who owns this data set? How can I contact them? Or, for example, what is the schema like? What is really the contract for this data set? Or another question I want to know, is this field aggregatable? Can I do a sum on top of it? Can I create so, it's these questions about consumption that we really didn't answer when we just write this data set somewhere and someone can consume it, right?
And it's not only, I feel like we were talking on a, just finish one more sentence. But it's not only like, data catalogs, they kind of like solve this, right? Because it's much more observable and you have all the information there and you can consume it. But I think it's more of the notion for the data producer to be aware of the consumer and have this discussion while composing this data pipeline and not after the fact.
Yeah.
This is kind of reminding me of like data mesh ideas. This one of the ideas in data mesh where you treat your data as a product that you plan to make available.
Yeah, this is kind of like the same, but I think our thoughts came in before. No, I don't know.
We invented it. No, we just had a different name, not as good.
We are very lazy, so we didn't really read data mesh, the entire thing, but we thought like, once we saw data mesh was out and people were talking about it, it was like, that's kind of like what we were doing.
Yeah, it really resonates to what we do, but I think like any other thing, it's very important to note. I think it goes for data mesh and whatever it is that we're trying to do. Infrastructure is one thing, and it should be like opinionated and real thought of. But then you have processes and organizational processes that you have to take care of to like bring this to life. Infrastructure is not enough, and I think that's also like a concept that data mesh is constantly talking about, and this goes for every like important thing that you want to like transformation for the organization that you want to drive.
Yeah. I actually find this reassuring about data mesh, that you could easily dismiss data mesh as just a buzzword, right? But the fact that so many people seem to be independently rediscovering some of these principles makes me think there's genuinely something in it that we need to be paying attention to.
Oh, it's very real. It's problems.
It's like the conclusion you'll come to if you keep searching.
I think it happens when the organization increases in size and increases in the amount of data, not the actual size of data, but actually amount of data assets that you have. So it becomes so complicated, and the ownership model just don't work anymore. If
ownership, we didn't talk about the ownership, but yeah, it's a big thing also in data mesh and what we were trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's probably the ultimate goal for everything, is that we want people to really own their data, and then we ask like, what is actual ownership? So again, just to answer your question, yeah, it definitely resonates and definitely reassuring, and I think we hear so many in our podcast as well. We hear so many organizations struggle with this with these problems, right? Because as it scales, it just becomes like this really insane thing and very complicated thing to produce and consume data.
Yeah, it can be. And if I'm understanding this correctly, in your case, you've got a particularly thorny issue in which your producers and consumers aren't actually developers in your company, right? They can sometimes be third parties writing jobs. Is that fair?
So this is actually not. I think for both of our companies, it's not one of the problems.
Okay.
One of the problems is, and I think that again, it's the size of the organization that dictates this. Is that so many people are able to produce data, and we should be allowing them to do that. If we're an unhealthy organization, we would allow only to a specific set of people to write data, and then it will be probably easier to do everything, because it's always like this bottleneck where you go through everyone, and they're like a bunch of people that are all really interconnected well.
Right. Okay.
But in our organizations, I think so many different types of people can personas can create data. We want them to create data because they're doing it for different levels of organization, right? Engineers produce data either to make their product data accessible, to create different features on top of data, or do ML and data science things. While analytics wants the data to do analysis, to answer to reports, and they also want to create like these data sets, right? They may not be for many use cases, but they may fit your use case or other people from their department use cases. And then you have BI developers or data engineers, which are also kind of like another beast in this area that produce data for different use cases. So yeah.
I really like to call it, like, we're talking about data democratization all the time, right? And people should have access to the data, but this is more than that. It's like data tooling democratization. Like, everyone has the right and the ability to build their own data pipeline, and we should enable that. It's part of like enabling growth.
So to answer your question, we don't have like third parties creating data inside our systems, but it's just like a lot of different people writing data. So it's
so many different teams that, in a way, it structurally almost behaves like external.
Yeah.
A large enough company is actually several small companies quite often.
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that now. So that's a lot of different, as you say, that's a lot of different personas that you have to like get them to think about the data they're happily writing differently and provide them and the consumers more awareness. How do you even begin to tackle that?
So I'm actually working right now on this framework at ZipRecruiter to help with this process. But I think that this word, like process, is kind of like the beginning of everything, right? And hopefully the infrastructure and the tooling can help with facilitating this. But the first thing you need to do is kind of like ask these questions, right? You have to talk to people. So it's like just like designing any type of product. So you say data as a product, right? It's a real thing. Product managers, analysts, BI developers, whoever is writing the data should own it. And the first part is actually talking to people, understanding the consumption patterns, and kind of like making sure that in the end, this data set will be usable. And what our infrastructure is actually doing is pushing into that direction in a way that you're going to have to describe a lot of different things when you write a data set, right? You're going to have to describe the owner, you're going to have to describe the schema, you're going to have to describe how you do aggregations. So if you're going to do all that, you should probably be aware of your consumers, right? And one other part that's very important is now, since we did a really good job with this new framework that we built, there's like lineage. So you know who consumes you, and you know what kind of data sets you consume. So the lineage part is super important for everyone to be aware of their surroundings, right? So it's again, it's a process where the infrastructure kind of like help push that.
I find that super interesting because it's like, how can you begin to care about the quality of your data that you're writing until you know who cares about reading it?
Exactly. Yeah. I also think that like the concept of the shift left, which is getting like bigger and bigger in the industry, it also really like eventually you come to a conclusion that unless you shift left, there's no way to overcome these issues and like the leftist you shift it.
Okay, I'm gonna make you define shift left as a movement.
I'm going to. Yeah, I borrowed it from Data Hub. I think they the one that used this term first, I think, but I really like it, and it actually means that like you don't need, or you can't fix all the data issues and data corruption discrepancies on the analyst side, on the consuming application side. The left. Right. The leftist, you fix this, which is like on the producer side, on the service side, on the database side, the actual developer that now creates this new feature, which is going to create this new stream of data, has to be the one that is fully aware of the quality of the data that they are creating, and if there are any data issues, they should be solved in the source. Then I think this is like the true key for building a healthy system. Otherwise, more and more people are wasting more and more time trying to figure out and fix the same problems that other people are going to solve because you're not solving the problem close enough to the source.
Yeah, but this is push like the solution upstream, right?
Exactly. And then you have many solutions that people have to apply, and they look differently, and you don't really solve the problem from the root cause. And this is complicated, and this is like a big thing to say, because it also brings much more responsibility to the application side, where they don't necessarily care exactly about some data duplication that doesn't affect the application side. And this can lead to another culture where you create like a different like clean set of data that you feed analytics with, which could be different than the data that is used for the application side. But I think at the bottom of all of this, it's a matter of like understanding how your data is being used and taking ownership over it, and like realizing this is an asset that you control and you produce.
Yeah, and it's really a part of like process and culture more than it's technology, right?
Yeah.
The organization needs to want this and understand like why it cannot work any other way.
And invest the time in it.
Both in tooling and both in all the different people that are actually producing data. They have to do a lot more work right now.
Yeah, because there's always the risk that you, in a less healthy organization, that you go to the people writing the data and they say, look, it's fine. I've been writing it that way for 3 years. It's absolutely fine. Why should I change? What's their problem?
So
I want to call it risk. I'll call it reality.
No, but I think unfortunately, and I think we see it in both organizations, is it's a kind of like a top-down thing that has to happen. Like the organization needs to realize that it cannot work that way, right? And then, we start so for example, in our organization, we're going to start this process called certification of a data set, right? And a data set has to be certified. And again, we can use the data catalog and the different tooling and help the producers, make that a quick and really easy process. But again, we now have a set of expectations from data consumers that they only consume certified data, right? And that certified data has to, uphold a bunch of different things. So that's like one way to solve this. And there are many different ways, but again, it's like a process way to solve this issue.
I think that like where infrastructure comes in and what you just described is how you create these processes and change things in a way that would not hurt the velocity of the organization drastically.
And that's our role, I think, in the organization.
Yeah.
Make it transparent.
We're just making more like work for ourselves, and like it's just to make sure that we have something to do in the organization.
And it's, by the way, it's not just velocity. I think one of the things that we actually love to do, and Doron and myself are really fans of this, is making this a fun process.
Like developer happiness.
Yeah, developer. Yes. Oh my God, I love it. No, but it's super important because
did I make it up?
You can make it's yours. It's yours now. Developer happiness. She loves trade. She really looking forward to
trying all the time.
But I think like this is kind of like a really important thing is when we ask these developers, now you have to document a bunch of things that you weren't documenting before, or there's no expectation from. They'll be like, but it's so boring. I'm not even a consumer of this data. Why should I care? So if we make this into a fun process that's very easily implemented, and they have like this different like visualizations to see if actually like this process actually worked, or so if they understand like what's in it for them, that can really help with the process.
This reminds me of something like Swagger. The quality of people's documented REST APIs went up after Swagger became mainstream. It's like, okay, so it's no longer a horrible chore and a maintenance burden forever, right?
Right.
So is that something you've done with the tool? Something like that have you done with the tool you've been working on?
So I think we have different use cases. So in Yotpo, what we did was utilize a tool called DBT to document all the different data sets, which is really nice, has a lot of different, and there's a UI on top of it with the data catalog, and it's really easy to write and test, and we really invested in, and you can see our current talk if you want. You can see a demo of what we
Link in the show notes to your talk you gave at Current.
Yes, we'll do. So that what we did at Yotpo, and in ZipRecruiter, for example, we're doing the same, but using protobuf format. So that's actually very similar to Swagger. So we're going to document all our data sets with protobuf, and again, making it very easy to document things and making it very testable and CI/CD oriented and everything. But again, so protobuf is going to be the format to document all that.
Yeah, it's a concept of having like an actual contract that both sides sign on and understand and respect.
Yeah. And we, it's funny, sometimes in this industry, we avoid saying, this is static typing, isn't it? These are strong types over your data.
Yeah,
it's the same idea.
Let's not open the subject.
Open this can of worms.
Can of worms. Schemas and types. Let's move on.
This is the thing during my career, but career in Doron's as well. He's starting. No, I've been moving back and forth on the topic of schema-less, kind of like typing. I think by the way, the world is going back into strong typing. Both for just programming and also for data, because I think it's just really messy if you don't have that, and the organization, if the organization is really big, then it's even too messy in a way that it can really cause like production issues if you don't have that in place. Schemas are really important. But I'm going to add something to that that's also important for me, is that it's a question of where that control over the schema or the data types is.
I have an example.
Okay.
No, finish your sentence. I'll give an example.
Example of something I haven't finished talking about.
No, I know what you want to say.
No. It's so in us in the infrastructure world, we basically and it depends on the organization, but at Yotpo we used to have all of the data pipelines go through us, right? It's not us, it's a virtual us, but we were the ones in charge of what's behind the scene running all the different ETLs and data pipelines, right? So whenever something was bad, it came back to us, right? So if you have a streaming job and something is like this, for example, someone made a non-backward compatible schema change.
That was the example.
Oh, okay. So, sorry.
No.
Oh, okay. So then we're all. Then it comes back to us. Oh, so fix it for us, right? And it's your problem. You're the infrastructure. I made a mistake. Well, I'll deal with it. And I think like this is where we want things to be different. Like that schema enforcement or backward compatibility and everything needs to be at a level where it like everything that's below that level can still be schemaless and fluid and free, and not having all these operations issue. Like it's still on the producer side or the shift left, whatever Doron said before, to make sure that they have their contract, but it's not on the infrastructure side.
Yeah, I think
you don't want to be an infrastructure service. You need to be a platform.
Yes,
exactly. And I think like how we exactly what Liran said, just to follow this through, what we did back then, like we had a certain issue where we were streaming CDC data and for our purposes to feed like live tables in the data lake. But suddenly, like, whoa, this is super interesting data. And all these consumers said, I want this too, I want in. And then they started consuming from the same topic. And then we started getting heat from the compatibility issues because changes were being made to the schema, and us as a CDC consumer into the data lake did not really care about it. So we said, okay, no compatibility, we don't care about this. And then we started breaking consumers. And then the architecture that we came up with is actually like separating into different Kafka topics and using mirror makers to replicate the topics onto the consumers' brokers for them to manage their own schema compatibility levels, which kind of solve the problems. Like you can manage whatever schema compatibility that you like. And I think this is a really good example of how to like distribute the responsibility for like whatever changes happen.
A split ownership model.
Yeah.
I have another example, but I don't even have the time. So let's. I don't know.
We've got time. I love an example. I love making things concrete.
So actually, I have an interesting example that's like from a production side, not from a classic data lake kind of side. So we have like the Elasticsearch for a CDP. So we built a CDP, our customer data platform at Yotpo, and we were kind of like this. Think about a centralized place where kind of all of the events from the organization are flowing in, and then you can do aggregations, analysis on top of it. You can cluster different customers and send them. For example, this was mainly used for messaging. So you want to find all the customers that have a specific set of properties. So the database at this point was Elasticsearch, and it was getting fed from many different data producers. The data. So we have producers that were creating data on their side. They're writing their contract, for example, there, and then just feeding it to some kind of a very complicated Kafka-based system that was feeding Elasticsearch. So Elasticsearch was actually a very problematic infrastructure at that point because it is not a schema-less tool by design. It looks schema-less, but it's not. It still has a schema behind the scenes, and you cannot change a type for a field after the fact, right? You're going to have to create a new index. So that's just an example of something that actually was interrupting. So then they were like, oh, okay, I have control over my schema. It's okay. I want to delete it. I want to create a new one, or I want to change something that's not compatible, or even want to push something that's even from third parties, which I don't even have control over its schema. So there's like a schema-less world happening.
No, that's an example for like third-party producers.
Oh, yeah. So we wanted our customers to send their own custom events to the CDP. And then Elasticsearch, which is, let's think about it like as a part of an infrastructure piece of the puzzle, was not even allowing that. So that was kind of like where I think, and I don't know if they're changing into a different engine behind this.
No, because you left.
I left, so I don't know what's going on right now. But again, this was like an example of how an infrastructure can really break that model. And you want the schema, but you want it at the consumption level. And Elasticsearch was also in the producing level. So it was really affecting the entire way the system can work and kind of limiting it. Okay. So that's like an example. Yeah.
Oh God, how do you untie knots like that though?
Leaving.
So it was just too much for me. Just too much.
I'm getting a sense that this is a slightly sore point that he's abandoned you.
No, I just miss him. I just miss him.
Fair enough.
That's fine. But I think, for example, in this case, we were looking at technologies to allow us to feed schemaless information or change the entire data model. So it's always like that. You always have to kind of like think about maybe I've done this entire data design wrong and I have to change it. So in this example, maybe we should have split into different indexes in Elastic based on the event type and just do like a dynamic creation of indexes based on the schemas. Or maybe we should have used like a very generic schema and everything is a string, and then the consumption layer, you're going to do like something called a schema on read, and you can use that feature. Or use a technology like Rockset, which allows you to feed schemas information and then do schema on read, whatever you want, in kind of a very kind of streaming way. So it's a very cool technology. So that's like there's a lot of different solutions back then. But again, it just shows like how it's important to have an infrastructure that is not really opinionated on how to actually consume the data.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times it's a journey. Like a lot of the things we couldn't have known like at the startup point how things are going to grow and what are going to be the needs and the requirements, and this is why we have to keep like agility and flexibility and also in mind, and actually like work plans to like fit the solution wherever it goes.
Yeah, if you make a decision like this can be a really, really expensive decision that you make. And if the system is like we're building it right now, and what we worked on together at Yotpo is like you have this decoupled system, then the decision is not as expensive as it can be, right? You have that decoupling in place. You can always switch to a different thing. There's always going to be a price for every change, right? It's never free. But how costly it will be, that's kind of like up to you know, and up to kind of like if you did create this really good infrastructure.
It sounds like you've been through a bit of an evolution and the wars, and you've got some ideas, right? But I know that you're trying to turn this into a system and kind of open source it. So tell me a little bit about your open source plans so other people can benefit from this.
Interesting. Do we have open source? I'm no longer at Yotpo, so do we have open source plans?
That's the rumor I hear.
Okay. That's the rumor we're trying to spread. Well, at the moment we're really focused on like winning with this new platform and making this like the working on feature parity with Metorico and what we have today in order to replace it substantially. So that's what we're super focused on now. But the feedback what we're getting through the demo and we talked to people and we showed it in a few meetups and shared it with people. People are excited, and I think it really like what we do in YODA. It really gives a more holistic view on what DBT we're trying to do, which we really liked and really loved it.
Yeah. I want to reiterate. So YODA is a project that we started off with DBT. So DBT is this. It's called Data Build Tool. It's a data modeling infrastructure, open sourced by a company called DBT Labs. They also have a managed solution. So it's a really kind of like the de facto solution for data modeling today. And it supports many different engines. So it was really fitting to our use case. And with YODA, what we did was, okay, so DBT is great as kind of like a very basic part of what we need, but doesn't solve everything, right? It's not really about the execution layer. It doesn't really do well for orchestration. It's not really. So we had a lot of. You can see our talk about this, but with YODA, we're trying to solve this. From one side, from the developer experience side. So again, as Doron said, we want to win. We want people to move to YODA. So we created this really nice way of interacting with it, which is better than what DBT proposes as its main interface. And then the second part is wrap it up with CI/CD and orchestration layer that kind of like helps do very complicated things automatically behind the scenes. Okay, so this is kind of like what YODA does.
Does it help at all with the whole governance and lineage angle?
Oh yeah,
well?
Yeah, but lineage is basically something you get out of the box from DBT because everything works with like inherent references between different data models. So that's really nice. By the way, it's a different kind of lineage because it's not it's not created via runtime. It's just created from the actual code and then the SQL that you're creating. But that's also very good, solid lineage that you have. So that part is kind of done. I think that in the part of the data documentation that we really, really care about, we added our own automations in order to make this easier for the developers because it's really tedious to type in all these YAML files and all these descriptions, and we wanted to make this easier for them. And as Liran said before, fun to encourage them to do so because. Like we talked about it a lot, but I think that like during the process of developing a new data pipeline, you're all into it, right? You know what it means, where it comes from, who to talk to, and when time goes by, and especially when you leave, there's no one else to tell the story, and there's this pipeline running there, and no one really knows how to attend it and where it comes from, what it's used for. So this is a very critical point. when a pipeline is being developed and created to capture all this metadata.
It's just not letting that all go to waste, right? It's
just collecting it in a smart way.
They already have that information in their head. They just need to put it somewhere.
Yeah. And by the way, like dbt gives us out of the box this beautiful documentation side where you can see all the lineage and documentation, which is awesome. And this, definitely this is where we're starting with. But it goes without saying that we need something bigger, like a data catalog solution, like, for example, ZipRecruiter are using Data Hub. And so we need something on top of that to serve like the whole system and bring us like end to end to map out the whole like data platform from sources to the different applications consuming it. So that's like the full vision of where we're going.
So if we were talking about open sourcing it, so we would open source probably.
We would open source.
They would open source.
You can be a contributor.
Yeah, no. Okay, let's not talk about that.
You signed away the rights when you left. I'm sorry.
No, I'm building something much better here. We're going to call it ZODA. No, not really.
YODA is the Yotpo data.
Do you need a divorce lawyer or something? Something comes.
Yeah, we need.
Yes.
But anyways, so there's like a piece where it's kind of like the interactive CLI tool that's really useful that Doron just described, where it's auto creating a lot of the different documentation piece. And again, we're using like a lot of the data that's already out there. So I already knowledge that you have in your head, or knowledge that it's already out there in the catalog or in the meta store. So we can collect that, we can create that automatically and generate that for you. So these are like a lot of auto-generating pieces. And then I think the second piece they will probably open source is the orchestration level, which is kind of like the way to automatically map how to run and when to run the different data sets. So all we ask for example, from our developers, it's so confusing, from developers in general, is tell us like how fresh do you need this data set to be? So is it going to be a streaming data set? Is it going to be something that's going to be once a day, once an hour? Like, what are your requirements? And then behind the scenes, since we have the lineage and we have this knowledge, we can auto-generate the entire orchestration. So we can create Airflow ducts, we can create streaming pipelines. We can do whatever we want, and all you have to do is just tell us what you need, and we'll take care of that. So again, you see that there's like a really nice decoupling of the execution and the actual business logic.
Yeah, it's the actual like abstraction. Like if we want to create this workflow management, this workflow for this specific pipeline or pipelines, then the developer doesn't necessarily need to know what is happening behind the scenes. It's another thing we can spare from them, which now they need to know like how to build an Airflow DAG, but it's completely like
it's useless information. Yeah, why would they need to know that? That's like it's boring in a way that it doesn't really help them with
it's programmatically very not exciting. So
yeah.
It's another trademark.
So,
okay,
Liran, would you like to commit Doron to a release date for that software?
Yes. So they were planning to release it in the beginning of January 2023 for the new year.
Excellent.
So it's going to be really amazing. I hope they'll invite me to the party where they but I don't think they will.
2023, you said?
That's in 1.5 months.
Okay.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath. But yeah.
Depending on when we broadcast this podcast, you may have already missed that release date.
No, it's a really cool project. I'm super proud of the work that that we did together, and they're doing it right now. And it's like I'm rooting for the win, because it's a win for like all the people that actually do platform engineering, because this is like the ultimate data platform engineering effort, and I would really love to see it win.
Yeah, and another thing that we basically invested a lot in is that basically dbt is really built for data warehouses. It's really custom for it, and we wanted to open it to something that's much more like flexible and different, and like to fit it into our data lake and open data platform needs. So I think this can address a lot of people in the industry, and like the use case is something that's very common.
Yeah. So if I could put a cap on this, I'm going to tell you what I think I'm going to take away from this, and you can tell me what I've missed for the conclusion. So the overarching theme here is find a way to get that feedback loop from your consumers to your producers and give the producers the ability to see the larger picture without distracting them with lower level details like how systems will be executed. You've got to get them to focus on the data pipeline from a 10,000 foot view.
Yep.
And the only way you're going to get that shift is you have to have management buy-in from the top.
Yep.
Is that a fair summary of the picture? A 3-minute sketch?
Yeah, it is. I think if you see our talk, it's a story about creating data platforms and the different decision making that you have along the way, and how they can really affect the culture for the organization. So these two things you just said are completely right. We didn't have our management support or the entire organization support in the beginning to all of the different things we wanted, and therefore we had to work from the bottom up. Right, we had to work from our engineers, and we created Metorico, which is really successful. But again, wasn't talking to analytics or wasn't talking to different data consumers. We were really focused on the engineering side. So that part is really right. And the other, I don't remember the other. So
and this feedback loop from how it's being used to how it's being produced.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that we're both like relearning right now as we go into this, and in both of our companies is the consumption of data is super important, and just putting data out there is not enough. You have to have more information about it, and that feedback loop is really important. You have to talk to the consumers to understand what they need and to really understand like what are the expectations from data, right? So even if let's say we did create some really cool data set and it's takes about 20 minutes to query, is that a good data set? I don't know. I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about just the metadata. It's also about like how are people are actually going to use it, what kind of questions they're going to ask. And if you are not thinking about it, or you're thinking only about yourselves and your team, then you're missing the point. And then they're going to have to create these duplicated data pipelines to summarize your data, or to create some kind of like shadow data pipelines on top of your data to kind of like make it smaller or whatever. So it's like
I think
oh, sorry. Go on.
I just want to say that I think it's also like a story about maturity, and like how we matured as a data group, and how Yotpo matures and ZipRecruiter matures in terms of how we treat our data. And we also talked about it in the talk that like we talk a lot about governance, right? And governance tooling, that's a big topic and data infrastructure. But we don't talk enough about our role as data governors. And I think that this piece of infrastructure really I had a fancy English word, which I forgot, but I'm going to say it like in a silly English word. But I think that
we have so many of those.
No, I had a really nice one in my head. But I think that this piece of infrastructure really shows like what we believe in and what's important for us, and like our job as educators for our organization, and how we can push this agenda and how we can push this agenda through
that was your big word.
No, it was a much fancier word. I'll write it down for you later. Agenda is not a big word. I know.
Email it through and we'll add it to the show notes. Just randomly.
Thank
you. No, just to put like a text to
Shut up.
Okay. I think it's a shame you two are no longer working directly together. You should find a way to fix that.
Yeah, we know.
But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us, Liran, Doron.
Thank
it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you again. Thank you, Doron and Liran. You know, this is a bit of a tangent, but I'm going to go there. I have always wished that the Agile Manifesto explicitly mentioned feedback loops. Feedback loops are in there. If you read between the lines, they're there. But it would be nice if it was explicit, because so often we return to this idea that a large part of the job of being a programmer is to get faster and better feedback loops, to iterate better, to give people more of what they need quicker. Sometimes we do that by leaving the desk and actually talking to different departments and talking to users and understanding them better. But sometimes it's about building tools that we can use to skip over that conversation and get everybody the answers they need fast. You need both. And so my point is, you might think that a platform team could just hide in the server room and keep things running. But to be good at it, they actually need to be involved in feedback loops, and they need to be enabling feedback loops for others. And that makes a really great platform. Speaking of feedback, as we love feedback here at Streaming Audio, so please do get in touch. There are like buttons to click and comment boxes and review boxes and share buttons if you like that kind of feedback. Or if you want to get in touch with me directly, you can find me on Twitter, if it's still running. At the time I'm recording this, it seems a bit uncertain how much longer Twitter will last. But assuming it's there, I'll be there too, so come and find me. And if you are ever in London, I've recently started running some monthly hack nights in London, so look us up and you can join us for a bit of programming. With that said, before we go, Streaming Audio is brought to you by Confluent Developer, which is our free site that teaches you everything we know about Apache Kafka and real-time event systems in general. Check it out at developer.confluent.io if you want to get started with Kafka or if you want to level up your Kafka skills. And to do that, you're probably going to need a Kafka cluster. So the easiest way to spin up one of those is to go to confluent.cloud and use our Cloud Kafka service. That's our platform, and we're quite proud of it. You can sign up in minutes, you can have an Apache Kafka cluster running in no time, and if you add the code podcast100 to your account, you'll get $100 of extra free credit to run with. So with that, it remains for me to thank Doron Porat and Liran Yogev for joining us, and you for listening. I've been your host, Chris Jenkins, and I will catch you next time.